Well, hello there, and welcome to episode 2 of Deep Thoughts from the Cloffice. I am your host, Thomas Nettesheim, and we're doing a second one here. I'm actually excited about this one too. I'll be excited about all of them because I wouldn't think that it would be exciting if I wasn't sharing it with you. So we are going to shift gears a little bit. The first one, we talked about how things I learned about trauma from my dog. So you'll also find, and we're going to probably do a couple of these, that I'm also a big movie junkie. I love movies. I love making them. I love watching them. And I love dissecting them. I love being able to pull out the nuggets of truth or the nuggets of the message that either the director, the actors, the people that are involved are trying to portray. I expect things a lot out of the movies that I'm watching. I don't necessarily enjoy just mindless entertainment unless it's something like The Princess Bride, which I ruined for my wife because of high expectations and saying it was the best movie ever, and I think I ruined it for her because she does not enjoy it. But I'm hoping I don't do that with today. So you probably saw the title. The title is The Impact of Gravity in My Life, and gravity is in quotes. So one of my favorite movies, and a movie that had a really big impact in my life and actually meant a lot to me, and I'll tell you why in a little bit, is the movie Gravity. Now, a couple things to keep in mind here. This is a movie that really meant a lot to me, and I'm going to share why. There are going to be immense spoilers galore in the next few minutes here. So if you have not seen the movie, it's about 10 years old, which is crazy to me, but it's about 10 years old. So if you haven't seen it yet, I still highly suggest. It might be something that you enjoy watching. It's a movie about space, but as you'll find out here, there's a lot more to it than that. And I'll explain why it made such a big impact in my life in a little bit. But spoiler, you've been warned. Hopefully, me going through some of the things that really meant a lot to me aren't going to prevent you from watching it, because it is a ride to watch. And if you do watch it, try to find a big screen, because it's a space movie and there's a lot of stuff happening in this movie. And I'll explain some of that here in a little bit. The other thing is, this movie meant a lot to me. I know that everybody has their own different styles, tastes. If you watch it and you end up hating it, I'm sorry in advance. But with that being said, if you enjoy dissecting movies, if you enjoy talking about movies, talking about what the purpose is, talking about what it meant to you, talking about why you think the director made it, then sit back and let's get thinking. All right, so as I said, Gravity is one of my favorite movies. So I'm going to butcher the guy's name, but it's directed by a guy by the name of Alfonso Cuarón, I think is how you pronounce it. And it's got Sandra Bullock, George Clooney, and the voice of Ed Harris in it. So it's got a good cast. And as I mentioned before, it happens in space. It's a space movie. It's all about people trying to take care of a satellite and then another satellite exploding and debris coming through. And the nerdy aspect of why I really enjoyed this movie is that the first 12 and a half minutes of this movie are one continuous shot. Now, there's a lot of CGI in this instance, so it's not quite as impressive. I mean, there's still some and the visuals are incredible, but it's a 12 and a half minute long sequence that you get to see the work that's being done, as well as some of the impact of the debris in space and all this. And it is a very cool sequence to start a film. One of my favorite starts to a film that I think I've ever seen. The other thing that I really like about it is that it's 91 minutes long, including credits. Now, this came out 10 years ago, and even today, you find that a lot of movies, if they're not over 100 minutes, even 2 hours long, then they're not a full movie, right? Anything less than that is almost a short film. But I really liked the fact that this was a 90-minute film and that was it. They told their story and they added so much depth to this film. And it's a movie about space. It's a movie about the intensity of space and what can happen if debris and all this stuff. Now, I'm not an astronaut. I'm not a big space person. I'm intrigued by going out into space, but I don't know how factual some of this stuff is. I know that things take 90 minutes to rotate around the Earth, which is one reason why it was an hour and a half long. But beyond that, I mean, if you're an astronaut and you're watching this, then hopefully I don't get too much wrong, but don't judge me too harshly because it's not my favorite thing. But this movie really meant a lot to me. And it's more than just a space movie. It's a metaphor. It is a very spiritual film. And it's not just me saying that. The director also says that as well about why he made the film and what the purpose of the film is. And then one quick side note of why this movie meant so much to me before I get into the weeds is my brother and I, this is one of those core memories. If you've watched Inside Out, you know what a core memory is. But it was a core memory for me because this was, again, about 10 years ago. My brother and I go and see Captain Phillips, I think we saw first. And then we come out and we're like, that was really good. And we looked up. We saw the movie Gravity. We looked at each other and like, you want to go watch another one? And so we go back in and we watch a second movie. And it was just 4 hours of us just hanging out, watching movies together. It was a lot of fun. So that was a really important moment for me and a fun memory of me and my brother. So that's another reason why this movie meant a lot to me. But again, the content of this movie is incredibly deep. It is a metaphor and it really made a big impact in my life. So you're introduced to these characters. It's Ryan and it's Kowalski. So George Clooney is Kowalski. He's the crafty veteran that's about to retire, trying to break records. And then Sandra Bullock, or Ryan, is the new person on the block that has the new thing that she's trying to put in place that's going to make a huge difference in the space program. And she's the noob in this and a little bit nervous, and she's trying to get something done. And of course it's not working, and she's trying to get it to work. They're starting to hear word of this debris that's coming their way. It's about time to shut it down. As you can imagine, with intense space films like this, one of their other space people that was with them gets killed, and it's just Kowalski and Ryan for a little bit. And they're trying to get to another location, another spot, so that they can try to get back to Earth because the satellite gets destroyed. And throughout the entire film, you see the depth of space, the way that it's filmed. It's filmed in 3D too, by the way. This was back when 3D was a big thing, and we watched it in 3D. It was so cool. But they, of course, added the elements of the things coming through and making it more 3D and all of that. But the other thing that was really cool was just the sheer depth. You could see the scariness. You could see the depth of them being out in space, and they're dislodged from their tethering, they're tethered together, they're flipping in space. Like, there's so much going on again in that first 15 minutes of the film, and you see the desperation and you feel the desperation. You even hear the desperation because they're close-up shots of Sandra Bullock, who's just hyperventilating, trying to get some sense of calm, some sense of direction as she's spinning away from the Earth in space. And it's an edge of your seat thing. And Kowalski, George Clooney's character, is trying so hard to keep her calm and so hard to distract her and to try to talk to her throughout this whole process, to try to smooth things over and to try to give her that sense of, hey, she's going to be okay throughout this process. And you'll find as we talk here, Kowalski becomes almost a spiritual figure to her as well. But they're going through and they're trying to get over to this new space, and they're talking, and one of the things that is part of this story is that Ryan, or Sandra Bullock's character, goes through a terrible accident and loses somebody very close to her. I'm not going to give away everything, but loses somebody very, very close to her. And ever since then, what she says, she just drives. So she works, and then she drives, and then she goes to sleep. And then she gets up, she works, she drives, and she goes to sleep. She's basically existing because of this event that happened that took away somebody close to her. And so that's one reason why she's in space, because it's quiet. And up until that point, it's very safe. She doesn't have to worry about the people around her. She doesn't have to worry about all of the things that are happening on Earth. She's just out in the quiet, in the silence, just doing the thing that she knows how to do and the thing that she's comfortable with. And she's just existing. Whereas Kowalski is talking about all of these random things that he's done in life and how he's been living and how there have been difficulties in his life, but that he's been able to push through and he's been able to thrive through those things. And so you see this contrast of personalities, this contrast of people, and you really feel for Ryan, especially after hearing the story that she tells. But they're heading out, and again, 90 minutes surpasses and more debris comes through, and it gets to the point where Kowalski and Ryan are hanging on, and it's becoming very clear that if they both hang on, that they're both going to die. And so Kowalski does a sacrifice of himself so that Ryan can go and have her life and go to do what she needs to do. So that can be kind of that first instance of a spiritual aspect of this film. A lot of times film involve some sort of sacrifice, some sort of somebody sacrificing their life or something for the sake of somebody else. And that's something that is very appealing to us, even in our soul. Whether you're spiritual or not, the concept of somebody sacrificing for somebody else is very honorable, very chivalrous, and it's something that we want to see. It's something that we want to grasp. And so Kowalski has this opportunity where he sacrifices his life so that Ryan could live. So that's the first kind of spiritual connection that I got between the two characters. Ryan keeps saying that she will go and try to rescue him, but he keeps saying, you've got to let go and you've got to be able to move forward. And that becomes some symbolism of the things that happened in her past that she was holding on to, that was essentially ruining her enjoyment and ruining her ability to move forward. So she goes and she gets into the spaceship, and she is able to get her suit off, and there's a scene that almost feels similar to a baby in a womb after the traumatic incident. And this is one of the things that Alfonso and Sandra Bullock talked about as they were making the film, was the idea of rebirth through adversity. And that was kind of their topic and their reasoning for making the film, is rebirth through adversity. And you'll find that theme runs through, and that's a very spiritual and very powerful thing that we need to remember as well. So Ryan goes through, and she goes through all sorts of other things. Spaceship isn't working right. Another round of just getting smacked by this debris. She's able to get to this Chinese station because the other station is all locked down, powerless. And so she gets to this other station, and she starts trying to call for Houston, trying to call for anybody. And finally somebody comes through. And it was somebody who made a call to space. And it's in a different language, but the person is a different voice. It's a voice from Earth. And she had just gone through all of this. She just lost everybody that she was working with. She was alone. And then this familiarity of a dog barking and a family hits her. And at that moment, she thinks she's going to die. And so this person is singing a lullaby to their baby, and she essentially uses that as an opportunity to turn off the oxygen and to put herself to sleep, basically. Unless something happens, something intervenes. And that was another spiritual thing that I got out of this film. There are times where we go through terrible, terrible things. I know of some people, a lot of people, who have gone through terrible, terrible things. And with the nonprofit that we have that's all about human trafficking awareness, and some of the other conversations I've had with different people, there is so much hurt that happens in this world, and there are people who go through so much pain. I can't say I've gone through too much pain, but I know people who have, and I've had conversations with people who have. And sometimes the only thing that makes sense for people is to just turn off the oxygen and just go in peace. Because anything is better than what they're living with right then and there. Or anything is better than living with that decision that happened in the past. Or anything's better than having to live with life after a traumatic event where you lose somebody or you lose something. And sometimes it is better to just go to where it's comfortable, go to where it's quiet, and just turn off the oxygen and be done. But that's not the end of the film, and that's not the end of your story. The film goes on, and Kowalski comes in to the spaceship and has a conversation with Ryan. Now, it's not real Kowalski, it's a vision that she has. But he almost becomes the Holy Spirit or some sort of spirit and voice of reason to her. And he basically tells her, you went through some terrible things. Like, I'm not downplaying that at all. And you essentially have two choices. You can stay up here, you can give up, or you can press on. And he tells her, it's time to go home. And so the whole scene, it's a whole conversation, and I love it. I think it's incredible. But I'll just keep it at that. You can watch the rest of it if you want. So then Sandra Bullock comes to a little bit more, turns the oxygen back on, and then I think one of the most powerful things happens. It's that turning point for her. And so she starts turning the oxygen on, and she starts getting to the point where she's going to move forward and try to get back to Earth. And she has this conversation where, it starts a little bit earlier in the film, where she asks the person on the phone that called her from Earth if he would pray for her because she was going to die, and that she didn't know how because nobody ever taught her how to pray. So she asked if he would pray for her soul. And so fast forward a little bit more, and she starts having this dialogue with Kowalski and saying, hey, Kowalski, you're going to meet this person, and I want you to tell her something for me. And it's this whole dialogue that is almost akin to a prayer, almost akin to a conversation with God that she had no idea how to do. But what she says in that conversation is, tell her I'm not giving up. Tell her that I am still going to press forward. And it was that moment where she said, you know what? I have got to give everything to getting back home. If that means I die, then that means I die. And it was a journey. But I am going to keep on going, and I am going to try to get home. I am going to choose life, and I am going to get home. And so she tries using the manuals, and she pushes the buttons, and she's trying to get back home, and she gets the spaceship, and she's able to get to where she is coming home, and the spaceport comes in, and again, I'm probably using the wrong terminology, but it lands in a lake. And so she opens her pod, and water's coming in, and she's able to finally get herself out of it, and she has to swim out of the water into the top of the water, and then she has to get on land. Another symbolism, and this one is something that is really great as well. Again, kind of going back to the birth and the new life aspect of things. It was almost a baptism moment for her, where she got home, she got in the water, and she was able to swim out of it, and she was able to get out of that situation, and she had a new opportunity and a new life. She makes it to shore, and there's a scene where, the music is swelling and the climax is here, and she's laying on the bank of the shore, and she's trying to get up, and her body is just weak. I mean, can you imagine being flung across space and having to go through all of this? I mean, it was an intense thing. But she's having a hard time getting up, and she just says no, laughs a little bit, and then works her way back to standing up again. Just like a baby trying to navigate through life. And she's reborn as somebody on earth, safe, up, and ready to tackle whatever comes at her. Ready to move forward. And it's one of the most powerful, metaphorical, spiritual 90-minute films that I think I've ever watched. It's visually stunning. It's a very visually stunning film, and it is an edge of your seat film because of some of the things that you have to encounter. But it is such a powerful thing. So the message that I think really comes from this film, it's a symbol for some of the depression, some of the anxiety, some of the things that we go through, right? There are times where when we're going through something difficult, we feel like we are the only one left, that everybody's left us. And chances are, maybe not chances are, but there are times where people leave because of some of the difficulty that we've been through. Or they're there only when it's convenient for them. And we feel like we're alone. Or we put ourselves into these boxes, or we put ourselves into this silo where it's safe, where it's comfortable, and we don't want to branch out. We don't want to get that help. And we want to just give up. But then God comes in, the Holy Spirit comes in and says, no, I'm not done with you yet. The trauma that you faced, the struggles that you faced, they are part of your journey, and you've still got time left. You've still got opportunity left. You can quit. That is always an option. But will you move forward? Will you continue in this life? Will you continue to try to make the best out of it in your journey to heaven, in your journey to the next life? Because there is so much that you can get out of this life if you do not let the difficulty that you're experiencing keep hold of you and keep you captive. And so if there's anybody watching this that has gone through any sort of trauma, any sort of struggle, any sort of depression, any sort of anxiety, any sort of experience that makes you feel like giving up, any sort of past struggle, don't give up. Don't quit. Keep moving forward, and you will see that things happen and you're able to move forward, and you're able to grow, and you're able to thrive, and you may even be able to help somebody else grow and thrive and move forward through what you've experienced, if only you are willing to take a step at a time. If only you are ready to experience that rebirth, that restoration, and are willing to try. Sometimes it just starts with that first step of trying. So again, Gravity is the name of the film. It's PG-13. Again, if you want to watch it, if you watch it and you hate it, I'm sorry, but that's what it meant to me, and it really made a big impact in my life. And be thinking about films next time you watch one. Don't just necessarily, I know mindless entertainment is sometimes fun. Try to see what the message is. Most of the time there's some sort of message that the director is trying to get across. What is that message? What can you learn from that? How can you connect that to your spiritual walk? How can you connect that to how you can help others? That's what Gravity did for me. So that's episode 2 of Deep Thoughts from the Cloffice, the impact that Gravity had in my life. And we'll do a couple other movie-related ones. I'm probably going to have a couple guests that join me, probably not in the Cloffice because it's a little cozy in here, but we're going to do a few more of these, and we'll keep plugging away as we can. Hope you have a great night. God bless you. Do not give up. If you're going through a difficult season right now, do not give up. Get help if you need to. Reach out to somebody. You're not meant to do this alone. Do not put yourself into a silo. Please keep going. And above all else, keep learning, keep listening, keep leading, and of course, keep loving. Have a good rest of your night.